Hey, thanks for joining me. As happens all the time, I was perusing that Facebook page where I pick up comics for cheap, and this same fella, I kind of only look for this one guy who posts these books for sale, and he's selling everything for basically $1. It's very cheap, and saw issues of The Punisher with an unmistakable Whilce Portacio cover. I saw that one, and I saw these two as well. The only cover of these that is familiar to me visually at all is this one. I've seen that. I feel like I've seen this image of the Punisher somewhere, but it was like cropped and it was just him, not the background elements. I'm not sure where that was. But I've heard about these Whilce Portacio drawn issues of Punisher for a long time. And I'm like, hey, for $1 each, why not? Let's get them. Let's look at them. And I think people out there would be interested to kind of see this stuff same way I am. I've got issue 13 and 17 and 18. So I think we'll just look at 13 today. This is it's always interesting to see an artist whose work you've been extremely familiar with for at least a certain era of comics. For me, as far as I know, the first time I ever saw Portacio's work was on X Factor. And he just kind of came out of the blue and caught my attention immediately. Like, obviously, he'd been drawing comics for a while before that, but X Factor was just kind of the first time I got to see him. And like I said, I've heard about these Punisher comics, and so I was kind of excited to see what earlier work from an artist whose work I'm very familiar with, what it would look like. Will it have the same kind of impact? Will I enjoy it the same? Who knows? It's always a question. I always talk about how a lot of these artists, many times with some of them, I like their older stuff. Portacio, I don't like his work quite as much anymore. I think some of it comes down to he's inking himself and he goes into the scratchier kind of look. And it certainly looks good. That's not necessarily a complaint or anything like that. But when Portacio is being inked by some other artists, some other inkers, sometimes, in my opinion, that's kind of the best version of them. And then there's other artists when they ink themselves, that's the best version of them. It's just all subjective. We've all got kind of different opinions and thoughts on this type of stuff. But yeah, I was really curious to see what this looked like. As a cover, I mean, it's a big screamy Punisher face holding a gun. The gun is extremely well drawn. The face is so that's Portacio's art if ever I've seen it before. It's kind of okay. It's intense. I don't know that I've ever noticed an image of Punisher with a bandana around his forehead with the skull on it. It's kind of funny. But flipping it open, writer Mike Barron, it's a name I'm familiar with, but I can't speak on too much about what about the man's history and credentials and what else he's done. But it's a name that I've seen, but I've probably read stuff that he's written, but I couldn't even tell you what it is. But yeah, Whilce Portacio penciler and surprising Scott Williams on inks. This is kind of going way back. I have to imagine this has to be some of the earliest Scott Williams art as far as an inker. And I'm guessing close to the earliest days of Whilce Portacio's penciling career. And this has to be amongst the earliest pairings of the two. So I thought that was kind of an interesting, very neat kind of like, wasn't expecting that. As an opening splash page is kind of fine. Obviously, there's a story that's already been going. It did catch my attention in the text box because it says Punisher War Journal. I'd gone to Utah to help a serial killer named Saunders escape from prison so I could kill him, but Saunders blindsided me, blah, blah, blah. The thing that caught me as a surprise, he says he's in Utah, which is where I live. And I'm like, oh my God, no comic book ever takes place in Utah because Utah's got some of the most beautiful scenery that you've probably ever seen in terms of mountains and forests and wildlife, that type of stuff. But yeah, no comic book is going to be like, hey, let's set this epic battle in the center of Salt Lake City. No one gives a shit. It's New York, right? Or Chicago or some bullshit like that. So anyway, it just kind of was funny. Like, hey, the Punisher's out there in Utah. And he gets hooked up with this guy. And again, there's a story going on previously. So there's a lot of elements to it that obviously I'm not going to know, just picking this up for the first time. In terms of Portacio's art, it's funny to look at it and go, I always kind of wonder with some of the older work, if you were to show this to me and not tell me who drew it, would I be able to discern who it is by looking at it? And I think so. It doesn't look like, when I think of what Portacio's art looks like, this splash page doesn't scream his art, but there's some little telltale signs. For me, it's mostly in the facial structure and the way the heads connect to the necks. There's something kind of unique about the way that Portacio does it. And of course, this is before he started leaning into what would become that Image comic style that it seems like kind of, Jim Lee kind of hyper popularized it, but there was Liefeld doing it as well. There was McFarlane doing it, and then everyone else kind of jumped on that same bandwagon. But it's not hyper over rendered and over detailed. It's just all the elements are there. What I like about it is the attention paid and the skill in terms of perspective on the background. Chairs and the boards on the ground and the window, it's like background is kind of relatively simple, but it gives you a sense of environment. We know where we're at. Portacio has always been one of those guys that had, like, I was going to say he doesn't get recognized for his skill, but he's obviously one of the most popular artists of the era. So it's not like not like he's not known, but I don't know. There's a lot of raw skill that he had that I think a lot of people could have learned from. So anyway, yeah, I don't know if I would have ever been able to identify that as a Portacio drawing. But there's this guy, and they know each other, and this story was kind of weird. It's kind of funny to just have, like, when you're used to reading comic books about the X-Men's or the Avengers or Spider-Man's and Fantastic Four and stuff. It's just a story about a dude with guns who goes out and kills people, which is the point of the Punisher, and that's why we kind of like him, the anti-hero. He will blow people away. That's kind of the point of the guy. But then sometimes it just kind of feels like the concept would lend itself to going on to repeat very easily. And this is just, as far as I know, just the standard Punisher title. Somebody can correct me. I think he showed up in an issue of Spider-Man. That was his origin. Is that correct? And then I think there was a Punisher miniseries. Again, somebody correct me. And then they go Punisher, I guess, regular series. So issue 13. So it's not like the character's been going that long at this point. So yeah, Punisher, he got kind of ambushed, and his buddy here kind of saves his butt. Punisher's like, well, thanks for helping me. I appreciate it, but you're taking quite the chance. Ortiz is his name, and Ortiz is like, Castle, you saved my butt in that bar in Saigon. I don't forget something like that. You're going to need some help. And Punisher's like, what about your job? Ortiz says, forget the job. I took a powder. My record ain't so hot anyway. They say I mistreat the animals. So I think he's some kind of like wildlife preservation guy, I think. I don't know if I missed that. I'm not exactly sure. The way I mistreat the animals, Punisher says, you don't know what you're getting into. Ortiz is like, look, 9 months ago, you called me up out of the blue, feed me some cock and bull story about a coalition of Vietnam veterans looking to carry out sentences. You ain't fooling me. You're the Punisher. Every pen in the country knows about you since you pulled that time at Rikers. So I guess Castle's trying to pretend like he's not who he is, and his buddies clocked him instantly. He's like, yeah, we all know that you're the Punisher, referring to stuff that's happened in previous issues. And then Punisher's like, well, I guess you're in. We've got to find the chopper. They'll be using it to spring Samson. So they're trying to go get this bad guy. Punisher's after this bad guy, and his buddy's going to give him a hand. Great. All right. So let's get together. Let's go do some shit. And then Punisher kind of lets this guy know, like, hey, if you kind of join me, we do this, Punisher says, slow down, Ortiz. Are you ready to throw your life away? Are you ready to step outside the law forever? That's the decision I made. So this guy just wants to get involved in this stuff. And Punisher's like, hey, if you take this step, you go with me and we do this stuff, you're on the outside of the law forever. And Ortiz is like, man, look at this, man. You think I ain't ready? You saw me handle action in Nam. So his buddy Ortiz has got all this hardware. And Punisher's like, well, what do you got for wheels? He says, Jeep outside. We'll swing into town and pick up the wife and the station wagon. Punisher's like, forget it. You can't bring your wife along. He's like, well, then forget it, pal. No wife, no guns, no ride, no help. So this guy's like, I'm going to go with you and we're going to go fuck shit up, but we're going to go pick up the missus and we're all going to have a big, gross, awesome action three-way and we're just going to get it on. So there's your basic setup. Again, looking at the Portacio art, it's not the flashy image style that will certainly develop into. It's just kind of basic kind of storytelling where everything kind of smaller panels. There's not a big anchor shot all over the pages like would happen in popular art in just a few short years. But it all looks pretty solid. Portacio's definitely got the skills. He draws guns so well. And again, it's kind of in the faces. The bodies and the backgrounds don't necessarily scream Portacio, but the faces, that's... especially these side shots, Portacio leans into kind of emphasizing cheekbones and drawing mouths in certain ways. At least that's what I see. So it's fun to see this older work. It's not quite as exciting. I don't think it's the best version of him, but it's certainly pretty damn good. Anyway, shortly. Hey, here's my Conchita. She's been working at the State Correctional Institute for Women. She's ready to kick some butt. The girl's like, so that Punisher man you've been talking about? I always knew we was going to do this someday. So this girl's super excited to get in on this action. Ortiz says, you just take it easy on the Punisher. We'll load the wagon and keep in touch on the two-way. So they go back and forth about how much ordnance you got. You know, are we ready to go get this? Are we ready to go on this mission? Yeah, he's like, how much ordnance you had? And Ortiz is like, considerable. We each had some stuff when we met. And the girl says, you know how we met? This fool was getting taken down in a liquor store parking lot. And I just happened to have my 9mm Beretta with me. And they're like, and we've been together ever since. So they're trying to play up. There's kind of like a humorous element to this story, which is kind of funny. It's kind of like aggressive, kind of criminal couple who met each other and they're both kind of violent and crazy. And Punisher's like, you're a fun couple. I can see that. Now, where do you think Lydia went? So again, they're talking about characters in the situation set up in previous books. So off they go in the station wagon in the Jeep. They're looking to go spring this bad guy that's elsewhere that we'll get to in the comic. And so now Punisher, he gets the opportunity to sit and talk with the guy's wife. She's like, so what's the story, Mr. Punisher, man? What makes you do what you do so well? And he's like, well, my wife and my 2 children were at a picnic in Central Park. We stumbled into a gangland rub-out. Phrasing. And they were killed. And so the girl, she's like, it's funny, my cousin Rita, we think Saunders got her. Now we'll never know. And Punisher's like, well, is that why you and Ortiz want to join the hunt? So basically, we're kind of going back and forth about why this crazy couple wants to join the Punisher, why they're a little bit kind of willing to do some crazy stuff. Punisher says, I always felt a psychopath was no match for a properly directed psychotic. And she says, I ain't no psycho, Mr. Punisher, man. I studied psychology and criminology. I got a master's from Colorado State. When I say I'm the avenging angel of death, I mean each of us was put here for a purpose, and my purpose is to kill those that need killing. And you don't tell me you don't know what I'm talking about because you've been through this bit before. So apparently this girl's a little bit of a crazy killer too, but she's making sure to point out that she's a super smart killer. Good for her. They see some other traffic coming down the road and like, well, we don't want to get stopped for an inspection at the border or something like that. Like, no, we'll just take some back roads. So they go up the mountains and then they're out camping. And, Ortiz is kind of like, hey, this is kind of like reliving our old days in Nam, right? And Punisher's like, hey, just leave that shit behind. But Ortiz is getting a little bit kind of worked up about it, which is kind of interesting. He's a little bit kind of excitable. But they go sneak up to this place that they're kind of trying to hunt down. So they're planning their mission. So it's heavily shadowed. I like these shots down here in the darkness. Ortiz is super excited. Like the dude's got a grin on his face, and Punisher's all focused. But they go up to these houses, and there's motorcycles hanging out. And it mentions here again. I guess this is stuff set up in previous issues, but there's a truck stashed in this barn, and Punisher's War Journal, even though this is not the War Journal comic, says one rocket in the back of that truck would take out everything in the valley. The walls are lined with sheet plastique. There's a detonator in the frame. That's my little secret. So I guess this is a van that the Punisher had, and he set up, and he's got it rigged to blow in a certain way if things go bad. So he's kind of planning his mission around that. So again, as I was reading this, I was a little bit kind of confused because there was some stuff going on that I just don't know about. But that's fine. But yeah, Ortiz is off doing his thing, and then his wife comes up. She's like, "Hey, yo, Punisher, we going? We doing this?" And there's this really weird part. Like, this is a really interesting written comic. She says, I got right down to the house. They're having an old-fashioned orgy. Got a couple of teenage girls, 6 guys I count. And then the inner text from Punisher's thoughts. He's like, there's one argument for not nuking the place, teenage girls, unless they're murdering scum, of course. So, it's just such interesting kind of dialogue. Punisher's like, well, we don't want to like blow these structures off the face of the planet. There's innocent girls down there. Well, unless they're murdering scum, then we could kill them. It's just a funny thought. But then the wife of Ortiz, she starts talking some weird shit to Punisher. She's saying, listen, we're practically family now, man. Maybe you and me should get to know each other better. They're not going anywhere in that fog because there's a heavy fog covering the area where they're supposed to be attacking, so they kind of have to wait. So Punisher's like, what did you have in mind? And she says, some close personal fraternization. What do you say? And he's like, well, what about Ortiz? She says, Ortiz don't mind. He's got a little problem he didn't tell you about. Punisher's like, I don't know and I don't care. She's like, what's the matter? You got a little problem too? So I was reading this and I was like, what the fuck is going on? This was the last thing I was expecting. Crazy girl, wife of his buddy. She's like, hey, I don't know you, but you know my husband. You guys are really close, so that makes us really close. She basically says we should fuck. I'm like, does she want to fuck him right here, right now? I mean, why not, right? And she basically implies, because Punisher's like, what about your husband? And she basically is saying his dick don't work. And he's like, I don't want to know about that. And she's like, so now she implies, well, maybe his dick doesn't work too. This girl's a horny girl. She wants to kill people. She wants to fuck strangers. Can I get her phone number, please? So he kind of tosses her away. He's like, cool it. Let's keep it business. Fate throws us together, but that doesn't mean we have to start acting like those animals down there. You and Ortiz should seek professional counseling. And she just calls them Ann Landers, if you know who that is. And she just walks away. She's like, I'm on a mission with Ann Landers. So she's pissed off that she got rejected. I honestly don't know what kind of version of Punisher I've never thought about, like, there's certain characteristics that a character should follow to stay on model. And, like, is Punisher kind of, like, celibate? Like, is he like, I only have love for my wife? Like, has Punisher ever been fucking anybody else? Has that ever happened? There's a part of me that kind of is like, Punisher would just be like, fuck it, why not? Let's go. Let's bang it out. We might all die in the next hour. I might as well, say like an hour ago I was balls deep in your wife's ass. Why not? But is it more on model for the character to be like, no? Because you could also say, he's on the job. We're on a mission. Go to hell. Now's not the time. I don't know. It was a really weird kind of addition. It really threw me off. I was like, I can't believe what I'm reading. I do also want to mention, it doesn't make sense tactically in the real world, but I will always kind of be a fan of the classic Punisher costume. The black outfit with the white skull, the white belt, the white gloves, and the white boots. Again, anybody who needs to sneak around in the dark and be kind of secretive, that is not what you would wear. There shouldn't be a Punisher TV show or movie where he wears that outfit outside of the skull on his shirt. But in comics, I gotta say, that's the version I think works. Because this is a comic book superhero universe, you could kind of get away with it. I actually think that's the best version of the outfit for him. But anyway, Dawn, they're kind of scoping out the place. Ortiz is back, like, hey man, they're moving Samson to the federal lockup. They're going to be moving out soon. The chopper and the truck are gone. They must have moved during the night. And then there goes the helicopter. I guess they kind of expected them to be getting away on a helicopter. And Punisher's like, well, I've been over the map. I know where they've got this plan. These bad guys are going to do a specific thing. And Punisher's like, well, I know where they're going to go, so we can get in our cars and chase after them. And so they talk back and forth about how Punisher's telling him, like, that van that they've taken that I guess is his. He's like, by the way, I've got that thing rigged to blow. You just shoot it in the license plate. It says the Nebraska plate. Just hit it and the whole thing goes up. It's gone. So they're setting up. You know, this is one of those things they're setting up. You know it's going to pay off down the road. Yeah, they're just kind of planning their mission. Off they go. There's a bunch of dialogue back and forth. But honestly, a lot of the dialogue kind of is like, ultimately, like, I get the point of these Punisher comics is to have kind of a low-budget action movie vibe, non-superhero stuff. It's an entirely different thing than your standard superhero thing, and I get it. Sometimes I think the stories really work, and sometimes, like, this one's just kind of fine. I've read some Punisher comics in my day. This one wasn't holding my attention quite that much, so I kind of started moving on, like, I don't care, this is the bad guy they're after. I gotta say, I feel like I've started to notice, I could be wrong, and I'm gonna be embarrassed if somebody, points this out that I'm incorrect, but, like, this fella, it kind of looks like Will Portacio, the artist. I mean, he kind of had, I don't know if he still does, honestly, I can't think about it, but he always seemed to kind of have a mustache like that. And so I'm like, does Portacio kind of go out of his way to draw himself in these books often? Because I swear, like, I've looked at a book recently where I was flipping through it, and there was another character that looked like him. So I kind of feel like that's something that he does, which I think is funny. I like the idea. I mean, why not, right? Or it'd be funny if he tries to throw in a character that looks like him that gets killed in every comic. That would be funny. Anyway, this is the bad guy they're after. You know he's bad because he's got a Nazi swastika carved into his forehead. He's getting busted out of prison bus because all the cops on the motorcycles are getting shot down. Bad guy jumps up and throws a chain around the guy's throat, chokes him out. So the bad guy that they're chasing, his plan to get freed is happening. Bad guys are showing up, machine gunning people to death. Stupid looking bad guy. Like, he's kind of a goofball. This guy's super not intimidating. And I just feel like just pointing out, like, this is so against type of Portacio of just a few short years, especially on X Factor, when there's going to be big giant images, full standing shots of the characters of Apocalypse or Cyclops or Archangel or Beast or big double page spreads. It's just all small panel storytelling. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it does kind of, like, that shot of the super bad guy holding his shotgun, very kind of weak. You could say it's understated, but and that's fine, but it's just kind of like, visually the pages could be a little bit more exciting, but then you could also say that you're sacrificing actual storytelling. It's fine. Bad guy starts blowing away more cops. They turn, they look, oh, there's the Punisher. Man, I would love to see this art in the original black and white, because Portacio with Scott Williams inking is just throwing in some really interesting textures on the muscles and all that stuff there. It looks really cool. Yeah, Punisher's there beating the shit out of people. His buddy Ortiz is there. They're shooting. But bad guy, main bad guy with the Nazi scar on his forehead, he's getting picked up by a helicopter with some girl that's kind of important to him. He gets picked up, and the helicopter lifts into the air. Punisher's coming up on his motorcycle. He's like, shit, missed him. So Punisher's now following on his motorcycle, and bad guy's like, hey, give me the gun, quick. And bad guy says, well, hurry up. Can't this helicopter rise in the air any faster? And someone, I guess there's a pilot, and then the girl, and then the guy they picked up. And pilot's like, it's only designed for 2 people. So bad guy with Nazi swastika says, tell me, my lovely Lydia, can you fly this thing? She says, no, or Ernie's the only one who knows how to fly it. Like, oh, well, so bad guy throws the girl out, and bad guy's like, keep flying, Ernie. Say you love Satan. And Pilate's like, I do, Charlie. You know I do. He's like, say it. I love Satan. I love Satan. He's like, that's good. And he keep flying. I'm reading this going, what the hell is going on? Say you love Satan? Again, maybe this was something set up in previous issues, but really weird. But the helicopter is still low enough, and Punisher on his motorcycle was able to chase a helicopter up a mountain to get even with it, to start shooting at it. And Punisher's bullets hit the pilot, who's on the other side of the main bad guy, puts a bullet in his head. So now the helicopter is careening out of control. And Nazi bad guy's like, well, one lone Avenger, one last angel against the Lord coming down fast. What did Ernie tell me about choppers? Satan has given me a soft place to land. So I guess he's like, well, I'll land it on this guy who's shooting at us. Punisher keeps shooting at him. And then this shot, like the helicopter is coming down and Punisher's barely getting away. It lands, explodes. I guess the entire helicopter misses Punisher. He jumps. He's lamenting the fact that he lost his gun. Bad guy, I guess he survived at least momentarily the crash. He's got his hand up saying, help me. Bad guy's down there. His legs are all busted up. And bad guy's like, I can't feel my legs. I'm paralyzed. I can't go back inside prison like this. You're the Lord's angel. Help me, man. So Punisher gets out a knife. He's like, say no more. Punisher fucking stabs the guy to death. Just kills the dude, which is that's what he's there to do. But it's also a very different kind of approach from a heroic character of a comic where the guy's like, put me out of my misery. And most heroes will be like, you're going to jail. No, Punisher's like, sure, shanks him, dead. So now Punisher's like, well, I wonder how the Ortizes are doing. So girl's there, husband's there. They're still in a firefight. Cops are showing up. Things are going crazy. Ortiz keeps trying, like they're surrounded by bad guys. They're surrounded by cops. Things are looking pretty grim. And so Ortiz is saying to himself, I rode with the Punisher. That's enough for me. Like he's kind of like, all right, maybe my life has got a little bit kind of closure at this point. Weird drawing by Portacio here. I wonder if he's getting kind of in a hurry. Giant head and little tiny microscopic little baby hands and arms down here at the bottom. Proportionately a little weird. Every artist gets, some grace for drawing some weird shit at certain times. But Ortiz, he knows that the license plate, this is that Punisher van that we had already established has been rigged to blow. So he's like, all right, well, he's like, I'm not going back to prison. So he shoots the plates, blows up the van, killing himself. His wife wasn't there. She was away in a Jeep. She's getting away. She's sad that her husband's dead. And Punisher, he sees in the distance, he just looks back. He's like, Ortiz. And then Punisher just walks away saying, should make Tahoe in about 8 hours. I'm like, fuck, goddamn, did that story just wrap up? And boy, he doesn't give a shit about his buddy who died. Doesn't give a shit about his wife who wanted to suck Punisher's dick. He could have got a blowy before everything blowied. It was just a weird story. Like, it wasn't bad, but it was also just a weird kind of structured thing. It's fine. It's okay. It's fun to see Portacio's old art in early inks on top of him. Artistically, it was pretty awesome. I'll give it that much. But, it is what it is. So that's all I've got for this one. I'll look at the other ones here in not too long. We'll kind of spread them out. But, Punisher 13 with early Portacio art. That's all I got for this one. Thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it. See you next time.